That's right. Welcome in. It is another live state tournament preview spectacular here on IdahoSports.com. Even your dog will love it. We are talking about
my
the boys.
pug's ready for state basketball. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, welcome in everybody to the 2023 IdahoSports.com State Boys Basketball Tournament Preview Spectacular. I'm Brandon Baney, and over the next 90 minutes, 15 minutes per classification, we will break down every state tournament bracket, give you teams to watch, players to watch, 5A all the way down to 1A D2. Thanks to everybody who's watching this live tonight. While you're hanging out, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We're coming to you live from all three platforms tonight. If you could hit that like button and then also share and or retweet this later, that will help everybody that wasn't able to be here live tonight find it easier tomorrow or even Thursday morning. So with that said, let's get it rolling. And we want to hear from you, the fans, tonight. Who are you cheering for? Who are you giving shout outs to? Give a shout out to your favorite team, your favorite athlete. Ask us a question, and we will throw it up on the screen right there. Yep. Who are you cheering for this weekend? Drop it in the comments, and we'll throw it up there for you. So I'm Brandon Baney. The guy that has been patiently waiting to talk is Lucas Gebhardt. Lucas, you and I will be broadcasting the 5A state basketball tournament. I'm super excited for it. We're going to be inside the cushy Idaho Center for most of the weekend. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, for sure. Living large in the Idaho Center. It'll be a fun weekend. Just a tournament that's just chock full of talent. Obviously we all know what Lake City brings to the table, but really 1 through 8. A lot of talented individuals in this field, and it should be fun to watch them go at it over the next 3 days here starting on Thursday.
Yeah, no doubt. We've already got, so we'll go ahead and throw that 5A bracket up on the screen, and we're already getting our first shout out of the night in as well from a Lake City fan. We'll throw that up there in just a second. But yeah, right here, Tom Layton, Lake City Cruises. Yeah, no doubt. So Lucas, when you look at this bracket, what is the first thing that jumps out to you? You kind of already tipped your hand there with Lake City, the number 1 seed overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's, first and foremost is how good Lake City is this year. And they come into this tournament not only with a 22-0 record, but a chip on their shoulder, being upset in the quarterfinals last year at Centennial, a school that went all the way to the state championship last year. But the other thing is just all the familiarity between the Treasure Valley schools. So 5 of the 8 of the schools in this classification are all from the Treasure Valley. So a lot of this bracket has seen each other already, which can make for some pretty interesting matchups, particularly if you start, kind of looking ahead. I know you got to play games on Thursday, but if you get looking ahead, you have potential Mountain View Owyhee state semifinal, and that could be something that could be, interesting there at the top of the bracket. But on paper, Lake City should win this bracket. Whether or not they will is a whole nother thing. Just ask them how it worked out for them last year. I mean, they have the best offense in this tournament and the best scoring defense in this state tournament. So on paper, any logical predicting person would pick Lake City to win this tournament.
And yet everyone did that last year as well. Right. Looks like we've got Sam Buffington, our big fan from North Idaho. Of course, Sam's always usually the first person to comment. Sam, you got beat to the punch tonight by Tom Layton. The man, the myth, the legend. Oh boy, brackets Baney. This is my alter ego this time of year. I love breaking down the brackets. Hello, Lucas, as well. Great to see you online. I'll see you guys at the state tournament starting Thursday. All right, sounds good, Sam. We'll see you there. I know he'll be cheering on the Lake City Timberwolves. And Christy Masterson says, let's go Lumberjacks. That's the St. Mary's Lumberjacks. Our 2A preview, Christy, is coming up at 7:45 tonight. So hang tight. And there is a camaraderie amongst the North Idaho teams, right? They never get the respect they feel they deserve statewide. And so the North Idaho teams will all be cheering for each other this weekend. But yeah, Lake City, the 1 seed overall. You look at the starting lineup, Lucas, and there's not a weakness anywhere. You've got Colton Mitchell, point guard, committed to Idaho State. Blake Buchanan, the 6'11 center, he's going to Virginia in the ACC. You've got Zach Johnson, who is 6'3 and plays the post and is the best on-ball defender we're going to see at this state tournament. And then you've got, Kisby as a complimentary piece. And then even the bench for Lake City comes in, and there's not much of a drop off. They're going to play Highland, the 8 seed, right away. And I talked to Highland coach Matt Stuckey, who is an Idaho baller legend in his own right, earlier today. And he said, basically at this point of the season, Highland has to stay true to what they are. And that is a team that likes to work from the inside out. Now, the only problem with that is that Blake Buchanan at 6'11" is also inside for Lake City. So we'll see how that goes for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, that you just said it. That's the problem, is the best player in the state's inside for Lake City. That's the one problem there. I mean, you talk about a kid like Buchanan. I can't think of another kid from Idaho that's committed to the ACC. Had his pick at, Gonzaga and a few other premier powers out here west. Ends up picking the ACC. But, yeah, you look at a school like Highland, it's a team that's a little bit battle-tested. They had to kind of work their way here to the state tournament, had to beat Centennial in a state play-in game. Their first 11 games of the season were decided by single digits. They played 15 games this season that were decided by 10 or less points. So this is a team that knows how to play in close games. But that's going to be the key for them in that quarterfinals game is, can they keep it close? If they could keep it close, then they've been in this familiar territory that they've been in all season with 15 decided by 10 or less points.
Yeah, and it really swung. Coach Stuckey told me they were playing Rigby at districts, and there was a 3-way tie for second place in their league this year. Madison won the league, and then there was a 3-way tie for second. They were playing Rigby at districts. They had a big lead in the second half. Rigby hit a 3 to tie the game as time expired. It went to overtime, and Highland said enough, and they outscored Rigby 12-2 in the overtime period to get the win. And Coach Stuckey said from there, it's really ignited his team, and they've had 3 of their best shooting nights over their last 5 games. So we'll see if the hot shooting can continue. If we look at the bracket again here, this 5A bracket, also on the bottom half of the bracket, we see the 4-5 matchup. It's Madison and Eagle. This to me is the toughest one to predict. You've got Madison, who played exclusively East Idaho and Utah teams this year, against an Eagle team that's pretty battle-tested. They played Lake City. They played in the SIC. What do you make of this 4-5 matchup, Lucas?
And coin toss to me. I think this will be the best game of Thursday. Madison is a team that ended up winning the regular season and district tournament out in Eastern Idaho. But they haven't really played anyone outside of Highland in this field. That is not the case for Eagle. Eagle has played 8 games against other teams from this state tournament. And that is, I believe, the most out of any team in this tournament. There might be one other team tied with them. But that being said, I think like the diversity of this schedule is kind of what impressed me the most. They played Owyhee, they played Timberline, they played Lake City. So they've played basically this entire bracket at one point or another in the season. And I have a stat in here that says 32% of their games were played against other 5A teams that have made this state tournament. So this is a tough matchup, I think, for Madison. And one for me that is really a toss-up, and I think will be our best game of the day and quarterfinals on Thursday.
And it's size versus size. Both teams have tall front lines, so that could be kind of a wash there inside for both of these teams. Eagle, I talked to their coach, Cody Pickett, earlier today. He told me they've had a lot of injuries. Hudson Van Alphen, a 2-guard they were expecting to be a big piece this year, was lost for the season after just 2 games. And that kind of was the start of the snowball rolling down the hill. They've used 10 different starters in the starting lineup this year, as they've just lost guys to illness and injury. And so they've kind of cobbled it together, and they're playing well at the right time. So that's going to be interesting on the bottom half of the bracket for sure. And then in the top half, you've got this, the 2 seed is Owyhee. The 3 seed is Mountain View. Now, they ended up tied for the SIC regular season title. Mountain View got the tiebreaker because they beat Owyhee head-to-head. But Owyhee got revenge in the SIC championship game. It's an all-SIC top half of the bracket with Timberline, the 7 seed. Timberline, the 6, playing Mountain View, the 3. Meridian, the 7, playing Owyhee, the 2. Any chance that it's not Owyhee, Mountain View in that first semifinal?
I really do think Timberline is an interesting team because of the matchups. They got a big 7-footer down low who's a Washington State commit. that's going to present problems matchup wise. So I think Timberline has to play their best game on Thursday to have a chance at an upset. That being said, they've won 17 games and they've seen Mountain View before this season. They played them back on January the 14th, and Mountain View won that game pretty decisively. It was a 61-43 win, but they played again in the district tournament, and Mountain View won that game again 65-43. I think this game Thursday is going to be closer than that. It's tough to beat a team 3 times throughout a season, especially after you just saw them last week. So I think Timberline can make some adjustments. I think they can make that game a lot closer. Whether or not they win that game Thursday, I think is another conversation. I think Mountain View, to me, was a bit of a surprise of how good they were this year. I was expecting them, to be pretty relevant within the SIC this year. I was not expecting them to win 19 games, though. And so, to me, Mountain View historically has struggled at the state tournament. They've gone 2-out the last several times. They've been at state with the exception of 2019, where they lost in the quarterfinals to Rigby. So this is a team that has in a program that's historically struggled at the state tournament.
Yeah, and speaking of state, Sam's got a question for us back to Highland on the bottom half of the bracket. Lucas, do you guys happen to know when Highland was at the state tournament last? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, I have it in my notes right here. Let's see. They were last to the state tournament in 2016, which was the year they won it all. So it's been a while for Highland.
Yeah, they were back in the day with Coach Chris Frost. I mean, they were one of the premier 5A powers in the state. They've fallen off a little bit, but it's nice to see Highland back at state, certainly. Okay, Owyhee, the 2 seed. We they're the defending champs, right? And until somebody knocks them out, they will be the defending champs. 19-5 in the regular season. They played a ridiculous schedule. They went to the Damien Classic in California again. This year, they went to Montverde Academy in Florida and played at a tournament there. You know anything about Montverde Academy in Florida, Lucas?
I don't, but guessing what they did to Owyhee, I'm guessing they're pretty good at basketball.
Yeah. So just a sampling of some of the alumni that have come through Montverde Academy just in the past couple of years. RJ Barrett from Duke. Joel Embiid, who's now in the NBA, Francisco Lindor, all-star shortstop for the New York Mets, Luke Richard Mbamute, D'Angelo Russell, Ben Simmons, who's in the NBA tearing it up, Devin Williams. I mean, this is the who's who of, legitimate basketball players. It's one of those basketball factories down there. So Owyhee, very battle-tested, but the one game everybody points to is they went up to play in this Northwest Nike showcase event at North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene earlier this year. Now, originally they were supposed to play a team from Washington, but the pass was closed that weekend. So Lake City and Owyhee looked at each other and said, hey, why don't we just play each other and get it over with? And Lake City won pretty convincingly, but I think Owyee's gotten a lot better since then.
I think they have. Here's the thing. That game was a long time ago. That was back in early December. Owyee's just coming off of a state championship, and Lake City is coming off of a game where they were upset as the top seed in the tournament. Which team do you think had the chip on their shoulder back in early December? Obviously, Lake City. So I think we see if they end up playing in the state championship game, which, some people think that this tournament is a crash course for that. I think that's going to be a much, much closer game. My experience with Andy Harrington coach teams, he's the coach at Owyhee. They play their best basketball come state tournament time. I think that proved last year when they had that. I forget how long they had a ridiculous winning streak coming into the state tournament, and tough semifinals win against Meridian in the state semifinals, and then obviously winning the state championship. But that even goes back to his days at Middleton too. I've always found that he can find the best out of his players come state tournament time.
Yeah, they won 20 in a row to cap off last season, and a year after they had Jack Payne as their one notable senior. This year they've got 6 seniors. They all come off the bench. Owyhee starts 5 underclassmen, but it's a much more experienced Owyhee team as well. All right, let's take a look now at our 5A players to watch, Lucas. This is, again, not an exhaustive list, just a jumping off point. Some of the players you'll want to keep an eye on. Landon White, double machine for Eagle. He set Eagle high school records this year for most points in a game and most rebounds in a game. Jaden Wright from Highland. He's a great 6'5" dual threat forward. Blake Buchanan, the 6'11" big man from Lake City. Barrett Wilson of Madison, 6'6" underneath. A very underrated player. Ryan Baker from Meridian. He's their leading scorer. He's kind of a jack of all trades for the Warriors. Logan Hostveit, only a freshman for Mountain View, and he leads this team in scoring. Liam Campbell from Hawaii famously got offered from USC after going to the Damien Classic last year. And then AJ LeBeau, the 7-footer for Timberline. Which player are you most excited to watch?
I think for me, it's Liam Campbell. He's kind of, I know everyone knows how good Buchanan is, and maybe it's just because I'm a Treasure Valley guy, but Campbell, he's got 3 offers from Pac-12 schools. You mentioned USC. He's also got an offer from Stanford and Washington State as well. Buchanan already knows where he's going. He's going to Virginia. This is the time where Campbell can show up at the state tournament and grab some more offers. He hasn't decided where he's going to go yet. And so to me, that kind of gives a little bit more of a chip to him. And, I also think just this whole Lake City team as a whole, I'm going to be really interested to see how they come out on Thursday. Are they going to come out, a little gun shy? Or are they going to put their nose to the grindstone like they've done all year and, kind of run through the schedule, which is, how they got to 22-0. Just so much talent within this tournament. LeBeau, 7-footer, can, for Timberline is going to be a really good X factor. And then the freshman out of Mountain View as well. How does he perform on the big stage at the Idaho Center? So definitely a lot of talent. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, my vote's for AJ LeBeau, the 7-footer from Timberline, because you just don't see that every day. So, all right, that's the 5A state tournament. Lucas Gebhardt and myself will be on the call. Lucas, I will see you in a couple days at the Idaho Center.
Yeah, we'll see you Thursday.
All right, appreciate it, Lucas. When we come back, we'll bring on Scott Burton to break down the 4A state tournament. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back right after this. You're watching the 2023 Boys State Basketball Tournament Preview Special on IdahoSports.com. Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com Boys State Basketball Tournament Preview Special on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Thanks to everybody that's watching live tonight. We know not everybody could make it for the live show, but a lot of people will want to come back tomorrow and the next day, and maybe even Friday, to see what we got wrong in our predictions. So if anybody, if you're watching tonight live, if you could hit the like button, and then when it's all said and done, share, retweet this video as well. That'll help everybody else come back tomorrow or the next day. It helps them find it a little easier with the social media algorithms. It is time to break down the 4A Boys Basketball State Tournament. I'm joined by Scott Burton. He'll be on the call for the boys 4A action. Scott, as we look at the bracket right away, let's throw it up on the screen. I want you to tell me what stands out to you right away. What's the first thing you notice when you look at this bracket?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is we might be on a crash course for a repeat from last year. Last year, state championship game was Hillcrest Pocatello. And, as it would have it, they're the 1 and 2 seeds coming in. And they are 2 of the very, very best teams in the state of Idaho and certainly in this bracket. If it goes chalk, we're going to have a repeat.
Yeah, so we're getting some shout outs in here. Allison says, go Madison Bobcats. That's a little spillover from our 5A conversation. And Jeremy says, go Skyview Hawks. Yeah, we want to hear from you, the fans, tonight. As you're watching, we want to hear your shout outs to your favorite team, your favorite player. If you want to ask us a question, throw it up there and we'll throw it up on the screen. So let's talk about Skyview. Let's start there since we had a Skyview fan jump in. The Hawks come in as the number 4 seed overall. They tied with Bishop Kelly for the regular season SIC title. BK won it on a tiebreaker. They got to the championship game. BK won that contest. We've also got Juan Garza Jr. Let's go Minico. JT Garza, of course, a big part of that Spartans team.
Nice.
Okay, so Skyview is the 4.
Okay.
Let's get that bracket up on the screen. Paul's not leaving it up there long enough for me to look at the matchups. Skyview's 4, Twin Falls is 5. So what do you make of this 4-5 matchup?
Well, the 4-5 matchup is usually one of the better ones because most of the time you can flip a coin between 4 and 5. The interesting thing is that these two teams have already played each other once this year. Back in late December, Twin Falls beat Skyview 55-51. And the Skyview team, even though they came in and they're second in the SIC behind Bishop Kelly, they've got 3 players that average in double figures, and so that makes it a little bit of a difficult matchup, especially if they're on. The knock against them is they're not very big. They're very guard oriented. But those 3 players, Chaparro, Walkenfuss, and Cutforth, they're 6'1", 5'11", 6'3". They're all kind of guards forwards, averaging in double figures for them. But the thing about them is the matchup they have with Twin favors them because Twin's not very big either. They're almost identical teams. I mean, really, when you think about it, because neither one of them are very big. They each have 3 kids that can score. When you look at Twin Falls, they've got Will Purcell, 16 points, Jared Mix, and Logan Pittard. I mean, it's going to be those 3 from Skyview against those 3 from Twin, and who gets hot.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be
they are mirror images of each other, I think.
And this is Skyview's first year back in 4A after dropping down from 5A. They had a 2-year sojourn to the 5A ranks. Now they're back in the 4A. Nathan Egan, we had that comment from the 5A where he said, Owyhee, Mountain View, or Lake City will be one of the teams that will take it in 5A. So you talked about Pocatello and Hillcrest in 4A. If you had to pick a third, who would be that? We've identified kind of 3 teams in 5A. Yeah. Who would be the third team in 4A?
Blackfoot.
Yeah.
I like this Blackfoot team. They're coming in as the number 3 seed, but they're coming in battle tested. I mean, don't get deceived by their 15-8 record, right? They were the second place team out of District 6, and we all know who won that one. But this is a team that, has played Hillcrest 3 times, that has played Pokey once. And they lost to Pokey by 11. They lost to Hillcrest by 5, 12, and 11. So they're not getting blown out. And Hillcrest games are blowouts. They just blow people out, period. They're that good. But this Blackfoot team, and you got a player by the name of Javante King who averages 19 points a game. He's a 6'5" senior, so he can get it done in the paint, on the guard line. He's inside out. He's complemented by another 6'5" senior, Ryan Reynolds. And those guys, scoring-wise, can present matchup problems. And they've also got a lockdown defender. Jackson Grimmett is one of those guys that will draw the best defender or the best offensive player from the opposing team. And if he's able to lock him down, and then Blackfoot's got length. They've got length, they've got athleticism, they just got athletes. And so if you're looking for that third team, that dark horse or whatever the case is, I don't think you have to look any further than Blackfoot.
Yeah, Blackfoot almost got to state last year. They took second from District 6 and had to play a play-in game against Middleton, and they almost knocked out Middleton and fell just short. So I know they're motivated. Shauna says, let's go Blackfoot for sure. Javante King, a 6'5" wide receiver. He's going to Montana State for football. And as a University of Montana fan, that just crushes my soul. He went to the hated arch nemesis Bobcats, but he's a talent for sure.
Well, Blackfoot's got, talk about those athletes. I mean, they've got 2 other guys that are going on college scholarships in other sports. I mean, they've got 2 baseball guys. I mean, Jackson Grimmett, the guy we just talked about, he's going to Utah Tech to play baseball. And then Dax Whitney is going to Oregon State to play baseball. So they've got athletes, and that's why Blackfoot is scary. They're, like you said, they're hungry. Almost made it last year, didn't. They're battle tested, and they've got the ingredients and the components that they can win any game. And plus, if they end up facing, if they get past Pocatello and face Hillcrest in the final, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. Hillcrest's going to have to beat them 4 times. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
And Nathan brings up a good point with that. You know, he says if it comes out to Hillcrest and Pocatello in the big game, I hope it goes into OT. Could be a good matchup. And he says, but if Blackfoot surprises us, it could also be a close game. They took the lead in the district championship game a couple of times on Hillcrest. And that's kind of what I saw this year observing 4A basketball. Gary asks, are you in your AD office, Scott, or is that a painted wall in your house? That's the office.
Yes, this is my office, and my man cave looks a whole lot different, and I can't even put it on the screen.
Yeah. So looking at 4A basketball this year, coming into the season, everybody thought Hillcrest runaway, so dominant. Yeah. And I think we've discovered as the season's gone along that the gap between Hillcrest and everybody else isn't like this big wide gulf. It's actually pretty narrow. And so Hillcrest does come in as the favorite. They're the defending champions, but it's not like overwhelming favorite. There's a lot of teams that can disrupt things here at this 4A. Ashley had a comment. Let's go Lakeland. Let's talk about the Hawks. They're the 8th seed. They get Hillcrest right away. Yeah. This is a team that was the 3 seed. They finished in 3rd place out of 3 in their district, beat Moscow in the play-in game, and then beat Sandpoint, swept them 2-0 in that best-of-3 series to get to state.
Yeah, and the thing is, and we say this every time, you can't really know what you're getting with these teams out of North. Now, especially when they are playing in this 4A, 5A conference. And people don't necessarily know that, because that is such a different world up there that, I mean, you've got Lakeland playing the Coeur d'Alenes, the Lake Cities that you just talked about that comes in at 23-0, and Lewiston all in the same conference, really. And then they separate it 5A, 4A, so that's part of their normal conference schedule are those 5A teams. And so you look at Lakeland coming in at 6-16 and you're like, what in the world are they even doing here? Well, they're obviously a heck of a lot better than that. And they've got a couple of players. Scotty Hawking is a guy that leads the way for them, averaging 18 points a game, senior. But the thing about Lakeland is, again, they're not very big either. They've got 4 of their 6 top players are barely 6 foot. So against size, they may struggle. And they don't have a lot of experience. Only 2 players coming back that really have any experience on this Lakeland team. But they are better than their record because of who they've played.
Yeah, and of course Hillcrest has size with Isaac Davis, the 6'7", Shaq impersonator underneath. If we look at the bracket again, that top half of the bracket, you got Pocatello, the 2 seed. They're going to take on Bishop Kelly, the 7 seed. It seems like Pokey and BK are just destined to match up in everything. They play in football. They met right away in the first round in girls basketball for state. BK is a team I got to see in December. And they basically said, we're more about the experience this year. We want to go play Lake City. We want to go to these tournaments and have fun and do well, and then see where we're at when we get into league play. And they ended up being pretty good. There's not like one guy, though, you can point to and say, this is the alpha dog for this BK team.
No, and that's what makes BK a tough matchup, is because they don't have that star. They've got one guy that averaged double figures, and that's Joe Barron with 12. So there's no superstars, and BK does what BK does, man. They just trot out athletes, and they just get up and down the floor. They out athletes you, and those athletes that Bishop Kelly runs out there have a lot of times a mental edge that a lot of other teams don't have. Because when I say they're athletes, I mean these guys are playing football. They're doing 15 other things there at Bishop Kelly, and so they're used to pressure situations. This is a team in Bishop Kelly that started the season 1-7, but they had a long football season. And so that you got to take that into consideration, because several of those guys never got the practice part, and they have to jump right in and get going. And it took them a while. But after Christmas, they went 13-2 and ended the season on a 9-game winning streak. So you look at Bishop Kelly, hey, they're playing good basketball right now. And you can't sleep on them, even though they're a 7. Pokey is going to have to show up a little bit. Because they do have enough to give people fits.
Well, let's take a look at our 4A players to watch. We picked one guy from each team, kind of a jumping off point. You talked about Joe Barron from Bishop Kelly, Javante King from Blackfoot. We've talked about Isaac Davis, 6'7", reigning MVP of the 4A tournament. Scotty Hocking from Lakeland, you talked about. Brevin Tranquil from Minico. He's the son of head coach Brady Tranquil and really the leader and the heartbeat of that Minico team. Great defensive player. Julian Bowie from Pocatello, Boise State commit. He's only a junior. You talked about Chaparro from Skyview, and then Purcell from Twin Falls. Who are you most excited to watch at this 4A tournament, Scott?
Oh, my word. There are so many good players. I can't. Isaac Davis is just a man-child. I mean, we saw that last year when he was a sophomore, and now he's a junior. Next year is going to be a senior. And, so you look at him and go, what planet is this guy from? And, I mean, he is just so big and dominating with 18 points and 9 boards a game. And this kid's got offers from Utah State, BYU, UNLV, and a host of others, as a junior. So, I'm excited to see him play. Another thing that I'm interested in seeing, too, is I'm interested to see what Minico does against Blackfoot. Because if there's ever a team that can really – become tough to prepare for, it's Minico, and it's their style. You mentioned Brevin Tranquil, and Brevin is the kind of the captain of the ship, but they almost do better when he's not pumping in 20 a game, when he's distributing the basketball, getting others involved, because this is a Minico team that every kid is 6 foot or over. They've got length, so they have the ability to score in the paint. They've got, Brevin, who's got over 1,100 points in his career. So we know that he can score, but they've been without him lately. He's only played one of the last 7 games. And they got another guy that's named Stockton Chandler, who is just a really tough matchup because he's a kid that plays all 5 positions. And so if you're able to take advantage of matchups, he's the guy that could be an X factor. And Brady is, a great coach, and he knows what he's doing with those matchups. And you got to, Riker Stimson can shoot the 3. Garza is great on the glass, just a tough kid. But here's the cool thing about Minico. We talked about Bishop Kelly having athletes. Well, all 14 of Minico's players are multi-sport athletes, and 12 of them played football. And we know how good their football team was and how physical they are. So that's why I'm interested to see what Minico can do, because they don't allow points in the paint. They're very physical, and they could really mess somebody up.
Minico and BK met in the semifinals in football this year. I'm sure they'd love a rematch on the hardwood. All those football players that are basketball players as well. Who you cheering for this weekend? Drop it in the comments real quick. We have one residual 5A comment here from Easton Colvin. Can I give a shout out to the Highland Rams real quick for turning their program in the right direction pretty quickly? Absolutely. This was a team last year that basically the players got together and said, yeah, we're not going to continue to play for this coach. They had a lot of internal problems, and now under first-year coach Matt Stuckey, they've done a phenomenal job. The 4A player I'm most excited to see, Scott, is the guy that shares your name, Scotty Hocking from Lakeland, because I've heard good things about him, and you can look at the numbers, but coming from the north, I'm really excited to see what Hocking can do for Lakeland there. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and he's a kid that we've seen pretty much everybody else because they're down here. The North, always the mystery. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he does, because he's going to have a huge tournament.
Yes, for
to
sure.
keep Lakeland around, for sure.
Yep, no doubt. All right, Scott Burton, you and Clay Hatfield will be on the call for the 4A state tournament this weekend on IdahoSports.com. We'll see you over there. Thanks for doing this.
All right, appreciate it, Brandon.
All right, our 3A state tournament preview is on deck. We've got both of our 3A broadcasters, Logan Green and Lance Taylor, standing by. We will bring it to you right after this. You're watching the 2023 Idaho Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on IdahoSports.com. Welcome back to That's Scott. Our producer is fired. Scott, see you later. Lance Taylor. No, Scott, out. Go. Bye. Oh, our producer is so fired. All right, Logan Green, Lance Taylor. What's up, guys? You'll be on the broadcast for the 3A state tournament. Logan, I think this is the most wide open tournament. I think, honestly, 6 of the 8 teams, I think, could all stand there and hold that blue trophy when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you say, if you look through the schedules for each of these teams, a lot of them have all played each other and they have beat up on each other where, they beat them at home and then they go on the road and lose to them. And you've seen that with Kimberly, Teton, Fruitland, Snake River, those Buell, throw them into that mix. They've all beat up on each other. And it is looking at Buell sitting there as an 8. I think that shows how strong this bracket is because they have beaten some of these other teams in the tournament already this season, and they're the 8 seed, right? And Kimberly's up there as the 7 who won it all last year. And then you've got Sugar, who's on a roll. You've got Homedale, who's had one little hiccup really since December. And there's just a lot of teams, and I have no idea what to expect coming into this one.
Yeah. Scott Coons on the comment says Teton versus Sugar again. That's his championship game prediction. That would be quite the battle for sure. And friendly reminder, if you're watching this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, or Twitter account, wherever you're at, if you can hit that like button and then also share this, retweet it, so everybody that couldn't be here live tonight can find it a little easier tomorrow. It'll help out a ton. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your comments like Scott. He's predicting Teton takes out Sugar at State, just like we did on the girls' side. Yeah, Teton's got the bragging rights recently, girls soccer, girls basketball, but in boys, football proved that, hey, Sugar's still the team to beat. So we'll see. Lance Taylor, what is the first thing that jumps out to you when you look at this 3A bracket?
Well, I think the first thing that jumps out is going to be Bonners Ferry as a 1 seed. And I think Bonners Ferry is very worthy of that one seed. A lot of people have called me, talked to me since the brackets came out and said, "Oh, the teams up north, they, it happens all the time. They're high ranked, high seeded coming in and end up going 2 and out and stuff like that." I'm telling you what, this Bonners Ferry team is good. Now, I'm not calling them the best team in the field, but I'm saying they are a very good team. In fact, last year they got 3 games in the tournament last year. They didn't go 2 and out. And last year, and I had a chance to talk to their coach, and I think Coach Williams is a fantastic coach. But I felt from a skill standpoint that their skill level as far as basketball skill was as good, if not better, than any team at State last year in the 3A division. I thought the thing that separated them was they didn't have the weight room culture at that time that a lot of the teams had. And they came up against teams that they just struggled from a physical perspective to keep with those teams. And, I know they've worked on that on the offseason. They are a very good team. That is not a team for anybody to sleep on. Rarely would you say that about a one seed, like someone's going to sleep on a 1 seed. But I know some people think that the ball's not as good up north there. But I'm telling you what, that is a very, very, very good team. And you take the Williams brothers, really tough.
And I've had the same feedback, Lance. I've had people say, really? Bonners Ferry? But, I mean, you look at what they've done this year. They have huge wins over teams in the tournament at all levels. I mean, they beat Lakeland by 20 points. They beat Lakeside, and it's a 1A team, but Lakeside is the only team to come within the same sphere of Lapway, right? And we all know that story. And they beat Kellogg. They beat St. Mary's. They beat Buell, like they've taken care of. They haven't beat Buell, but they will play Buell. Excuse me, but taking care of business against Sandpoint. I just think that this is a team that, like you said, I think people think that they need to prove something, and I don't think they do. I think they earn that top spot.
Yeah, I think they earned it. I think the only thing they'll have to prove at the state tournament level is that they're going to step up and match up to that physical play.
Right.
They struggled with the last couple of years to match up with, but Coach Williams, like I said, he's a fantastic coach. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of good teams in this tournament, and you nailed it. That this tournament is open. I think when you look at the top 8 in the Max Prep rankings finishing the regular season, there's only 2 teams that didn't finish in the top 8, and those both come out of District 4, which is Kimberly and Buell. And that was kind of the same scenario with the girls coming out of District 4 too. And those were the only 2 teams actually that went 2 and out. However, I'll tell you something, this Kimberly team lost a lot of kids from last year. Coach Darren Gary is a very good coach. They lost a lot of kids from last year, and this is a team, they're young, but I'll tell you what, they will shoot the ball from anywhere. And if you happen to catch them on a night when they're hot, they can run anybody off the floor if that's the case. I think probably your most consistent team and the team that really can get production from everybody is your Sugar Salem team this year. A lot of production comes from these athletes, between Christian Gordon, Zach Doherty, Kelton Gardner coming in and running the point. There's a number of others as well, Coy Sanderson. It's a very good team. I think similarly, Snake River is very balanced in that same way. And Teton is very balanced in that same way. So there's some really good teams out there.
For sure. We've got a comment here from Brian Chase. Bonners Ferry is solid, 10 players deep with lots of shooters. He would know. That is Coach Chase from the St. Mary's Lumberjacks, and he saw Bonners Ferry up. Hey, thanks for being here, Coach Chase, and we'll get to the 2A in just a little bit. I'm very excited to talk about your team. Sam Buffington says, go Badgers from the north as well. And Nathan says, good luck to the East Idaho teams in 3A. Good chance an East Idaho team will bring home the banner. Yeah, Logan, we've talked about, Lance just talked about Sugar and Snake River. But what about Teton? I feel like Teton is very quietly lurking as well. They're the 3 seed overall, Logan. They had to win not 1, but 2 state tournament play-in games just to get here against Marsh Valley and then McCall Donnelly. And neither one of those is a walk in the park. So this is a team that's battle-tested.
No, and that's exactly, my thought coming into it is, what are you doing right now? And I know you look at what Teton has faced over the last couple of weeks, and it's a win against South Fremont, and then you swap in a loss with Sugar Salem, right? It's like a stepping ladder. It's just back to back to back. And so they have been going up against the best, albeit losing those games, right? But again, when it comes down to a tournament, you could throw all that out the window. And, coming into this game, that they have beaten some of these teams. They've beaten Snake River in the regular season. They have done some of these things coming in that I think that they deserve to be here. They deserve to be looked at, with a little bit of fear, so to say, from Sugar, right? Because they are going up against a team for what'll this be, Lance? The
if they were to meet, they could only meet in the second round.
Right.
If they were to meet in that second round, this would be the 5th time playing this year. It was the same with the girls. Sugar won the first 4, and then Teton's girls knocked off Sugar in the 3rd place championship game at state. They're boys. It's a very good team. In fact, at the first of the season, I was saying Bonners Ferry was my dark horse in the 3A tournament. Right now, it's Teton, because Teton's a very good team, and a lot of people are not giving them the credit. I'll tell you what, I've seen this team. I've seen them 4 times this year. They're a very good team. They're always well coached. Coach Roosevelt, fantastic coach. In fact, between him and Coach Freeman, Coach Coombs, Coach Williams, I think you got some of the best coaches. Coach Gary, some of the best coaches in the state of Idaho at these high schools. But they're a very good team. And I'll tell you what, too, they can hit you inside, they can hurt you outside, and they are a team that if they're hot, they could also run anybody out of the gym.
Now, sorry, Brandon, but I want to come in and say one thing about Teton, though. I'm a Treasure Valley guy. That's where I live, and we haven't spoken about Homedale or Fruitland, and those are 2 teams that I personally think are maybe a step above Teton. Personally, I think Homedale and Fruitland. I really like those teams. That Homedale team is loaded. They have been playing well. Fruitland this year, they've lost to Homedale a couple of times during the season. They had a hiccup against, believe it was McCall Donnelly, back in January. But outside of that, we're looking at losses to 5A Middleton, to 4A Pocatello. They took care of business against South Fremont, beat them by over 20 points. I'm not saying that. When I look at it on paper, I don't see anything. And that's just Fruitland, right? We're not even talking about Homedale. I'm looking at Fruitland saying, what have they done to be overlooked here? And I think if Teton is looking for Sugar in the next round, that they don't make it out of that game. And that's my thought, is that if they're looking forward, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, you have to do what it takes to win the game in front of you. I think, looking at a Homedale, I think Jackson Dines, for people that saw what he did last year in the tournament, I think Jackson Dines is probably your best one-on-one player in the 3A tournament. He is a fantastic one-on-one player. He's a tough defensive assignment for anybody who does it. So if games get close, and oftentimes you have to use those one-on-one players in one-on-one situations, those games get close, Homedale can be a very dangerous team.
Yeah, Scott Coons says depends on who comes to Boise to play and who gets hot. And Homedale has the best defense of any team in the field in terms of points allowed per game, and defense always travels well for sure. And Sean Kane says East Idaho strong. Teton is very tall. Yes, they are. And Scott says we will handle Fruitland. We'll see. I don't know.
And so here's the thing, going off of what Lance said with the physicality, right? That he thought maybe Bonners Ferry was lacking that. That is something that Homedale is going to bring to the table. And if you're not ready for it, if Snake River isn't ready to bump and grind down there, that Homedale's going to, they're a tough team. You look at the roster and it's basically a mirror, right, of the football team that we've seen what they've been able to do year in and year out. And so, I don't know. I think these SRV teams are just getting a little bit overlooked by everybody, kind of like Bonners Ferry is. But I think a lot of people are saying, they're just penciling in, maybe Bonners Ferry and the 3 East teams into the next round. And I just don't think it's going to be that copy and paste like maybe people think. And I'm excited, Lance. I don't know about you, but I think it's going to be a fun opening round of basketball. I think you could throw a dart at the board and say, yeah, that could happen.
In fact, I think this will be the best opening day of all the division sizes in the state of Idaho. I think your best opening day as far as competitiveness goes is going to be in the 3A division. Don't forget about Snake River. We haven't really mentioned them. Bob Coons, again, crossed 500 wins last year. Very good team. His son that's a sophomore, 6'4", 6'5", Marcus Coons. Mismatch for a lot of teams because he's got the athleticism of a lot of guards, which could serve him well if he goes on and plays at the college level. But yet he's got a lot of good moves on the inside as well. Very dangerous team, very well coached. And they're always going to be competitive. Always going to be competitive.
Yep, for sure. Well, before we get out of here, guys, let's take a look at our 3A players to watch. We picked one from each team. Here's the list. Braden Blackmore of Bonners Ferry crossed 1,000 points for his career earlier this year. Great senior. Kyler Kelly of Buell. Tyler Capps from Fruitland. Great inside-out player. We talked about Jackson Dines from Homedale. Jacob Cummins from Kimberly, one of the few guys that is back from last year's state championship team. Luke Higginson from Snake River. Coy Sanderson of Sugar, and of course, Jerem Hoosevelt from Teton. Logan, which guy are you most excited to see play this weekend?
So I kind of have a half answer to this. I haven't seen Bonners Ferry yet, so I'm excited to see them and what they can put on the court. I'm excited to see that and see what it's all about because I think the hype is real. But I'm excited to see Jackson Dines. You mentioned it, Lance. I think he is a capable player. Where I always look back, I probably said this to you, Brandon, but, UConn winning the national championship about a decade ago where Kimball Walker just got hot and he carried him to a title. And that can happen right here. It's March, why not? And I think Dines is a player capable of taking a lower seeded team to an unexpected run. I mean, we saw they're not a 7 seed, but we saw it at the girls tournament where we saw 2 7-seeded teams win on day one. And we saw multiple 1 seeds not make it to the championship game. And I just think that we could see the same thing here. And Homedale and the Jackson Dines is an opportunity. I think that is a dangerous team to make it possibly. And so that's where I'm at.
Lance, one guy.
The player that I'm most excited to see this year is Asher Williams from Bonners Ferry. Asher was a freshman last year and made a mark in the state tournament. Again, he was struggling with some of the physicality a little bit. He was that, your typical kind of tall, skinny freshman, but very talented athlete. I'm very excited to watch him as they come into this tournament.
I like it, Lance, going off menu for your selection there for the.
Well, I know the Sugar guys, I know the Teton guys, I know the Snake guys, I know the Kimberly guys, and so I've had a chance to see them. So the one that I'm excited to really see is Bonners Ferry, and I'm excited to see the growth Asher Williams has from his freshman to his sophomore year.
Yeah, big shout out to Bonners Ferry up north. Christian Wiener, a broadcaster and writer for us during the fall and spring sports seasons, an assistant coach for Bonners Ferry this year. So we'll see how the Badgers do. Logan Green, Lance Taylor will be on the call for all of your 3A state tournament action starting on Thursday. And when we come back, we'll bring on Paul Kingsbury to talk about the 2A state basketball tournament.
Well, it's going to go downhill from here. It's with Paul. I mean, come on.
We're on the back nine of the show here, and we had all of our heavy hitters, like any good baseball lineup, all at the top of the order. So you're right. It all starts with Kingsbury.
And the Jones is just playing cleanup down there.
Yeah, it's about 8-9 hitters coming up as well.
Logan, sorry your Wolfpack took a.
I know, man. I had to calm myself down. I was down. I was mad.
I knew I was going to get an email after I texted that photo of the game.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to hear me complain about that. They always get the calls in Cameron, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on now. We'll let you guys
8 free throws. Come on, man. Come on.
We'll let you guys continue that combo off air. 2A state tournament preview coming up next. You're watching the 2023 Idaho boys basketball state tournament preview special on IdahoSports.com. Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com boys basketball state tournament preview special on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. As you are checking out the action live tonight, throw in a comment, throw in a shout out to your favorite team, your favorite player, and we'll throw it up on the screen. And
favorite broadcaster, just saying.
I mean, we could, but I don't want to steal your thunder. So
I didn't say it was me. I'm just saying, hey, just throw it up there. Obviously, everyone would pick Gary Jones, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Brandon Bainey,
tenured broadcaster here at IdahoSports.com.
Yes. Brandon Bainey with Paul Kingsbury getting ready to break down the 2A state basketball tournament. And also, if you're hanging out watching live tonight, thanks for being here. A lot of people that couldn't be here live tonight, they'll tune in tomorrow, or maybe on the drive over to Boise, or even Thursday morning, or maybe even Friday to circle back and see what we got wrong in terms of thoughts and predictions. So for everybody that can't be here live tonight and wants to find it later on, if you hit that like button and also share it and or retweet it, it will help everybody find it a little easier tomorrow. It takes 2 seconds and you're helping everybody out. So thank you for doing that. Paul, let's get into it. The 2A state tournament. This is going to be a pretty exciting one. When you look at this bracket right away, what's the first thing that jumps out to you?
There's a couple of things that jump out right away. I mean, the first thing that I look at is one, Lance is kind of full of crap because he said that the 3A day one was going to be the best. I think 2A is going to be the best on day one. The other thing is, and I'm building to the crescendo here, is Scott was right when he said 4A or number 4 versus number 5 tends to be the best game of the day. That really could be a St. Mary's versus Ryrie matchup. Two very good teams at 4 and 5. But the big thing that stands out to me is Bear Lake Westside. The fans have to be absolutely yawning at this matchup. This is the 5th time they've played. I think the last 3 games in a row they've played each other. So they know who each other are. I mean, they know each other's, deepest, darkest secrets at this point because they played so many times. So those are the big things. And you look at the way the bracket works and how the seeding is done now. And at least Bear Lake and Westside are meeting up now and possibly not in a championship or semis, right?
Right. And we've got Katie in the comments. Go Bear Lake. This is a really, really good team. They defend the heck out of the basketball. And this is not anything new for Coach Brandon Carlson. He has had a lot of success in terms of winning state championships at Bear Lake over the years.
Oh, yeah. Well, I happen to have it in front of me. He gave me some really good info. He's got a record of 245 wins, 125 losses. That's good right there. 14-4 state record, 2 state championships, 4 consolation trophies. And it's their 7th trip to state in a row. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough conference to come out of. So coming out of that conference, and especially in the old days, it was the way it was seeded. You pretty much had to win to come out or win and then win a playing game to get to state. So it's quite an accomplishment for Bear Lake. And you're right. They come out, he's been there 15 years. They've got some size. They've got shooters. They're a fun team to watch. I did 2A last year before, and these kids were, sophomores on the team, and now they're seniors, and they can shoot their way out of a gym, those kids. So up and down, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, Jed says, talking about their first round opponent, Westside, it was sad to not see North Fremont get past Westside. They were really coming on strong at the end of the season. Yeah, North Fremont was a 4 seed at their districts. They lost a very close game to Westside in that state tournament play-in game this past Saturday. So let's talk about the team that did make it from the nuke. That is Ryrie. You talked about that 4-5 matchup playing St. Mary's. We've got Tyler Renner from the Lumberjacks in the chat poll. Yeah. Seth Swallows has the best mustache in the 2A. I fully expect a good post-tournament report from you on this. Who's got the best facial hair?
You know, there's a few things that I'm going to have chats about when I head to St. Mary's, and I'm a little nervous because, you know, we know Brian Chase is watching. Yeah. So when the coaches are watching, you really have to watch what you say, because we're going to be going up to them, you know, before games going, hey, how you doing? And I don't want to have to duck in case Brian takes a swing at me or anything. But those coaches are always a ton of fun to talk to in the past. But there's a couple things that I'm going to talk to the kids about, one or two of the kids about, a couple of the nicknames that got dropped on me. I'm going to verify some nickname stuff, but it's find out more by tuning into the 2A state tournament on Thursday.
Yeah, and another St. Mary's Lumberjack. I think they're all watching, Paul. Jared Badgett says Grayson Sands, first team All-League. He was also selected for the statewide All-Star game as well. So congratulations to Grayson Sands there. He was the 6th man as a sophomore 2 years ago when St. Mary's broke through and ended that long championship drought. I know because I was there.
You were on the call.
I did those. Of course, St. Mary's, I'll always have a soft place in my heart for them. My father-in-law, class of 77, graduate from St. Mary's. But Ryrie is a tough task in the first round. This is a Ryrie team that's got some good athletes and some length.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, head coach Jordan Hamilton took over him a couple of years ago. They won two games. They, and now to turn it around like this and come back, and actually a pretty cool thing, you know, that he's done. They got the district title this year. He said, we're hoping to make some noise at state. He played for Coach Torgerson in that last season before he stepped down, but then he came back 5-6 years later and asked Hamilton to come back. He did, and that's how he got here. So, you know, if you're coaching with Coach Torgerson, and I'm sure Gary, he's in the green room right now, but he has great stories about Coach Torgerson as well. But classy guy there, and of course our own Matt Harris, the Bulldog, is now the AD there at Ryrie. So a lot of connections there at Ryrie, and really looking forward to seeing them. 20-4 coming in. There's a lot of win heavy teams in the 2A tournament this year. And so it's going to be competitive on both sides of the bracket.
Yeah. Justin and Jennifer Jacobson have a championship prediction: Bear Lake versus Melba, and the Bears by 6. I like it. That would be the top 2 seeds. Scott Kuhn says Ryrie is my prediction. They had to battle Teton and Sugar, a pair of 3A teams that will be in contention for the 3A championship this year. And JJ Volkers says B Volks, that's Braden Volkers and the Mustangs. Let's go. Yeah, Melba is the defending champion, and they did go through the regular season, and they looked very impressive. They played St. Mary's for the championship last year. They're on the same side of the bracket this year. Yeah. What do you make of this? You know, I've never seen a defending state champion get less acclaim coming in than Melba has, and yet here they are.
Right. I mean, they're 23-0 this year.
Yeah.
38-0. I think the last time they lost was January 13th or 17th of last year against Ambrose. All they do is win in Melba. The girls team undefeated, boys team undefeated, and they're good. They're very, very good in coming in, and they're just bruisers. You know, I think of Cash Buse, and I've called a few other games over the years, and I really look at him as kind of a miniature Dennis Rodman. I mean, he is just in there, reckless abandon, throwing elbows, getting position, getting the rebounds, throwing them around. Just a big, strong-bodied kid. And then they've got B Volks, you know, Volkers that can go in and shoot lights out. And then they have so many weapons to stop that it's if you key on this guy, a couple more are going to step up. So a Melba Bear Lake championship isn't impossible.
Yeah, and we've got Gary Jones in the comments as well, talking about former 2A excellence. Paul Kingsbury, a former 2A state basketball champion in 1993.
Who had zero to do with it, really. I mean, I watched the entire championship from the bench. It was a great experience.
Do you have a ring?
I did not. We didn't do rings. I don't think any of us got rings. if I remember right. I don't think it was even a thing. I do still have my medal somewhere, locked away, safe. Dang it, I was going to get that medal and do a Gary Jones and say this is what it's all about, and I totally forgot.
Well, you totally missed.
I'll be right back.
Okay, so
you can wait for 10 minutes.
So you famously were part of the New Plymouth championship team in '93. New Plymouth didn't get back to state this year. They had to go play Kellogg in that state play-in game on Saturday. They ended up dropping that contest. Put that 2A bracket back up on the screen, Paul. Let's take a look at that bottom half or the top half of the bracket, because this is the one matchup we haven't talked about yet. Kellogg, the 6 seed, Cole Valley Christian, the 3 seed. Cole Valley is, they got beat up a couple times by Melba this year.
Yeah.
The New Plymouth was a very good team, and Kellogg comes in with really, I think, untapped potential. They've got fireworks offensively with the Luna twins.
Yes.
And a great coach. And I don't know, this to me is the toughest game to call, Cole Valley and Kellogg.
Oh, it really is. I mean, you think about the 4 and 5 matchup being tough, that 3-6. I don't know if it's really a 3-6. I think they're a lot closer than that. And, like you said, the Luna twins, they come in averaging together 36 points a game, and it drops off pretty significantly after that. They account for 13, 15 rebounds a game together. So, the game plan, obviously, for any coach, I mean, I'm not spilling any beans here, is, all right, let's guard the Luna twins, and see what everybody else can do. And Cole Valley, they can come out on their own. They've got, Max Myers, who is one of the players to watch, Kingery, those guys, Kingery, just a junior. So there's a lot of players on both sides who, if they can come in and have big games and play that potential that they have, and that's always tricky on Thursday, because it's a Thursday game. They're playing, earlier than they're used to, and it's at state. And so there's always those state tournament nerves. And sometimes you just don't get your best performance on Thursday. And if you don't win on Thursday, you can kiss that blue trophy goodbye. Best you can hope for is third, maybe consolation. So coming out and playing your best, especially in this tournament, is going to be so important on day one.
You're right. Well, before we duck out of here, let's take a look at our 2A players to watch. We picked one from each team, not an exhaustive list. It's just a jumping off point. Tyler Beersford from Bear Lake, great lead guard. Max Myers of Cole Valley Christian, we talked about him. Emmett Gibby from Declo. The Hornets kind of dismantled Wendell, fairly easily in districts, despite coming in as the 2 seed there. Colby, I could only pick one Luna twin. I decided to go with Colby. You could put Ripley in there
coin on that one.
Yeah, that'll start a nice family argument. Braden Volkers from Melba, Sterling Bybee from Ryrie, Grayson Sands of St. Mary's, and Eli Brown of Westside. Which player are you most excited to see play?
Honestly, it's the Luna twins. I mean, I'm excited to see how that dynamic works. I mean, I haven't had a chance to see really Kellogg play. I watched, a few of their games on Wildcat Live with, Simon Miller, the guy that up there, their tech guy that does a great job broadcasting those games. And so I've seen some, but it's going to be nice to see them in person and to see what those twins can do up and down. Aside from that, it's, will the Melba players come out and play their ball? Will the Bear Lake guys come out and play their game? So, but if you're asking me to pick one, I'm picking 2, and it's the Luna twins.
Yeah, and I'm kind of interested to see Emmett Gibby from Declo, see what those Hornets can do up against Melba right away in the opening round. So,
man, we are way behind in our comments.
I already put that up. I put that up already. I put all of these up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Could you stop? I put all these up.
This is what happens when you have too many cooks in the kitchen.
You don't. It's like you didn't even pay attention when I put these up on the screen. Yeah.
Well, hey, it's great to be here, Brandon. I'm Paul Kingsbury. Let's get this started.
Oh man.
Oh, wait, we already did.
Paul Kingsbury.
My broadcast partner Lauren is going to be with and he's like in a Mexican restaurant with his wife right now. He chose a date with his wife over hanging out with you and me.
Yeah, shocker. That's the biggest upset of the weekend.
It really is. I'm upset about it. I really am.
All right. Paul Kingsbury, Lauren Jensen will be on the call for the 2A state tournament starting on Thursday. You can tune in, of course, to every game on IdahoSports.com.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing, Brandon?
Sure.
You're the boss. I'm going to be it's a shameless plug. for my Paul's picks. I'm writing it right now. It's taking forever to write. I'm hoping to have it up tomorrow, but I'm going through every game in the opener and picking the winner and picking the loser, even the games that I'm going to be calling. And in the past, we've done it with Matt Harris when he was with us and Sven, and they would never pick the games they were calling because they didn't want, to face mom coming up and yelling at. Yeah, I've got the gall to do that. So I'm going to be picking every game, every classification. Paul's picks should be up sometime tomorrow.
All right. Stay tuned to that on IdahoSports.com on the homepage. All right. We will take a break and we'll come. Our 1A D1 broadcasters have been patiently waiting as Paul has run over his allotted time. Tim Belknap, Josh McGauley coming up next with our 1A D1 state basketball tournament preview right after this. You're watching the 2023 Idaho Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on IdahoSports.com. Welcome back to the IdahoSports.com Boys Basketball State Tournament Preview Special on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Thanks to everybody who tuned in live tonight to watch the action. While you're hanging out watching, if you could hit the like button and also share and or retweet this, it'll help everybody that wasn't able to be here live tonight find it a little more easily tomorrow or maybe even on Thursday. And we're now to the 1A D1 preview with our 1A D1 broadcasters, Tim Belknap and Josh McGauley. All my 1A D1 fans, where you at? Who you cheering for? Drop in a favorite shout out to your favorite team or player, and we will throw it up on the screen. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Let's start with our first shout out here. It's from Misty Lowley. And she says, "Go Lakeside Knights." Yeah, there's a lot of.
That's a good team.
Yes. Let's throw the bracket up on the screen here, guys. And Tim, I'll ask you first. When you look at this bracket, what stands out to you right away?
How can you not just drop right down to the bottom game, the 7:00 game, game 4, and look at Lapway, last year's defending champions. Perfect season this year, perfect season last year, going up against Liberty Charter, which you think, well, they're a number 8 seed. So, that should be an open and shut case, right? Not so. Liberty Charter actually won their district title game. But because of the strength of schedule, they got dropped down to an 8 seed instead of the 7 seed out of their district. So I look for that game out of all these brackets I was looking at. I looked at that and thought, you're going to see some action in this game. Liberty's going to come out and they're going to say, I want this. This is our trip to the title. And frankly, they've got a lot in front of them because Lapway, these kids are athletes. Josh, you and I got to call them for football. We had the time of our life on that game. Those kids are athletic. They are fast. And it's going to be tough for anybody to keep up with them. Josh, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. Lapway is really good. And we'll go into more stats later when we start broadcasting them. But, man, just over the past decade, how good they've been has been incredible. But, for me in that bracket that you just showed, that top portion of the bracket is going to be the most interesting because I'm really glad that Miss Misty showed up for her Lakeside Knights because Lakeside is going to be a really interesting team in this bracket. And they are really good. And if you look statistically, they are 0.1 percentage right under Lapway per points per game. This Lakeside team is really good. I'm looking for that top of the bracket, that team to go pretty far in this tournament.
And those two teams famously met up in Lapway in January in a game that we had on IdahoSports.com. And Lapway won the game 89-76, but they were pushed by Lakeside. And if I remember correctly, Lakeside's star point guard, Vander Brown, Didn't play much in that game because of foul problems. So who knows what? And they're so similar. Josh, you mentioned it. They both play fast break basketball. They both pressure the heck out of you defensively. They both have athletes that are capable of filling it up. If it is Lakeside Lapway again, what a treat that's going to be for the fans and for both of you. Certainly. So
yeah, and Vander Brown is that player that I'm looking forward to, because you're right, he did struggle in that first meeting, but he's averaging about 24 points a game, and if he can do that throughout this whole tournament, and all of the players around him, that whole team, I mean, we are looking forward to that. If that happens, of course, there's many things that have to go on. There's many awesome, great teams that could upset that as well.
Yeah, for sure. When we look at the top half of that bracket, we'll put that back up on the screen real quick here. Lakeside, the 3, has to play Potlatch, and they're kind of the upstarts from Lapway's league, Tim. Potlatch came in as the number 3 seeded districts. Everybody thought it was going to be Kamei taking that second spot. Kamei and Lapway.
State runner-up. I mean, come on.
They played for the championship last year, and Kamei was the team that had played Lapway the toughest besides Lakeside this year. But Potlatch says, we're here to crash the party. And so now the Loggers kind of playing with house money a little bit, Tim.
Yeah, house money. What a great analogy. Those kids are in every game is the championship game for them. They're here to play. They've proven that they can play when they beat Kamei, which shocked everyone except themselves. And I really look, Lakeside's a great team, but I think Potlatch is going to come in there. You're going to see, this is a 9-5 conference team, but I think they're a much better team than that. And I think they're going to play them tight. If they can figure out how to get a couple of people in foul trouble on the other side, this could be a big game.
Yeah, and of course, if Lakeside gets to the semifinals, Grace is going, hey, we're here too, we're the number 2 seed. We've got a lot of tall trees underneath, and Dallin Draper, and they're missing the one big guy from last year, Gray Gibbs, the 6'8" center, but he's about the only guy they lost. They've got Ty Gilbert, who's a great point guard.
Player of the year, actually, for the conference last year.
Yes. And so if it's Grace that gets out of that top half of the bracket, Josh, that wouldn't surprise anybody either.
No, and not at all. They're 20-4 this year. I mean, that team is really good. And you mentioned so many other good players. And Titan Anderson, he was their quarterback this year. He's also their leading scorer this year as well. He's incredible, just all around, rebounding and points, getting about 12 points a game, 7 rebounds a game. He's doing everything he needs to do to lead that team, and for them to go through and get this, they're gonna have to get every single piece of all of their players going at the same time.
Yeah, and of course, Grace will play the 7 seed Victory Charter. Tim, you kind of alluded to it. Victory Charter and Liberty Charter, both from District 3, and District 3 just historically at state has always struggled to find footing. It's always been the White Pine League or East Idaho that seemed to dominate at the 1A D1 classification. But Victory Charter's got a guy at Noah Palomares who can really fill it up, and it's going to take a team. It's going to take a team.
He will. He'll fill it up.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun guy to watch. But for Victory Charter and Liberty Charter, man, it's even more difficult for District 3 to get any footing when they're the 7 and 8 seeds as well, with Max Preps.
And you know what? Victory has a first-year coach. Dave Weaver's done a great job with them in his first year. But wow, that's a tough thing to come up and play Grace. Grace, athletic kids. Not that Victory's not, they also have a 20-4 record. That's not anything to shake a stick at. They're going to come in, and I think what we'll see is we'll be surprised at the strength. I think you'll see them powering to the basket a little bit more than is expected. I'm almost positive that's what they've been practicing this week, and I think you'll see them try to use a little up-tempo game to try to get Grace to be off center a little bit and start reaching and getting into foul trouble. And if they do, then it'll be a different game. It'll be anybody's game, but they do have their work cut out for them.
and one other factor to consider, they've kind of flipped the bracket this year, where in the past it was always the 1 seed that played right away in that 12 o'clock game. Now it's the number 2 seed. I saw this last week at the 4A girls state tournament. Blackfoot came in as the 2 seed and they went 2 and out. And I really do think having to play right away at noon, they just weren't in the right headspace to play right away, and they got punched in the mouth and then they folded after that. So that's something to consider as well. Grace now having to play, whereas last year they would have been the last game of the night. Now they're the first game of the day. That could be a big factor as well.
I think it's a big factor. These kids are all, I mean, they're all leaving tomorrow, right? They're all heading to state tomorrow.
Yes.
They're all having their shout outs, their send offs. By the time they get to Boise, they're, get some food. It's all exciting. It's state tournament. But for that first game, I mean, you wake up and, kind of get ready and you're into the game. Everybody else gets the luxury of kind of going and stretching and watching some basketball. Oh gosh, I should look at that. That's a great move. I want to look at that. Maybe I can do that. Or if we play these guys, we know what to do with them. That first game just keeps you off center. It really, most of us are just trying to have brunch, right?
Yeah. Right. Our crack intern / researcher, Gary Jones, says Grace won a title years ago with Dick Motta, who went on to coach in the NBA. They've got Rory Lloyd right now, and he's been the coach there for a long time. He's pretty good as well. Let's talk about that 4-5 matchup as well. If we put the bracket up on the screen again real quick here. And this one to me is the most intriguing, Josh, because it's Castleford, it's Cary, they're district rivals. Castleford won the regular season matchup. Cary beat them by 2 in the district championship game. And now here they are slotted up against each other at state once again, Josh.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really interesting. I going through the bracket, I try to fill out my own little, what's going to happen. Like, because we're getting around March Madness. I know Paul's doing his picks later. That game is just, you could flip a coin. There's really no idea what you can come out of. Castleford has been really good this year, but so has Cary. Like, there's the players, and the way that they've been playing this year has been incredible. And there's no really favorite in this matchup. And all the other matchups, you can say there's a quote-unquote favorite, right? This matchup, there's not. There really isn't. Both of these teams are just incredible talents as well.
Yeah, and completely different stories, Tim. Cary makes the jump up from 1A D2, and you can pretty much set your watch by it, death, taxes, and Coach Dick Simpson getting his Cary Panthers to state. I mean, he's been the coach there for 20 years, and I think it's been 19 of 20 or maybe all 20. He's gotten them there. And then Castleford's kind of the new team on the block. They're very senior heavy. We saw this in football this year as well, where they kind of crashed the party. They're sort of a non-traditional power, but here they are with a chance to show that, hey, we belong on this 1AD1 stage.
They do. And, to come in on the first year and qualify, I mean, usually when you jump a classification, it takes 3 to 4 years for you to kind of assimilate into how things go a little bit faster, bigger game, whatever the case may be. But, I mean, let's look at this game, this district championship game. Carson Perks wins it with a bucket with 2.6 seconds left to go. And, it was a great shot. It was a bank shot. But if that's the kind of game we're going to come down to, that is the game to watch. And I always call this the heartbreak bracket. When two teams from the same district get slated up against each other, it's just heartbreaking because you're like, no, let's spread it out. We want to play other people. I don't want to play you. It's like dating my sister.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be tough to see Castleford and Cary have to match up again, but that's going to be, I think, the best game of the day by far. Gary Jones, our again, crack researcher, talking about Dick Motta, the coach for Grace, who won a title so many years ago. Any guesses on when Coach Motta won that title for Grace?
1965.
You're not far off, Tim. It was 1959. The Class AA title for the Grace Grizzlies, and we'll see if Grace can break through again. Let's take a look at the 18th straight year at state for Cary, led by Coach Dick Simpson. Paul Kingsbury told me
18 years out of 20 years coaching. That guy's a stud.
Pretty phenomenal.
Nobody ever remembers basketball without him.
Right. Yeah, seriously. All right, let's pivot to our 1AD1 players to watch. This is not an exhaustive list, just a jumping off point. We picked one guy from each team to highlight. Carson Perks from Cary. Dude could fill it up. He's had a couple of 30-point games this year. Ethan Rowland of Castleford. He was the Swiss Army knife for their football team. He played receiver, quarterback, running back, did it all. He's a great rebounder for Castleford as well. Ty Gilbert, great point guard for Grace. Vander Brown of Lakeside, we talked about. Here's a guy, I can't believe we haven't mentioned his name yet. Case Wynot from Lapway. He has scored 50-plus points a couple times this year. He had a quadruple double in the opening game at districts against Genesee. He is a high profile, high caliber athlete, and he, barring, something unforeseen, more than likely is going to be Idaho's all-time leading scorer for a career of anybody when his career is done. He's only a junior. Luke Thomas from Liberty Charter, Jackson Bowles from Potlatch, and Noah Palomares from Victory Charter we already talked about. Tim, which guy are you most excited to see?
Vander Brown. The kid's an athlete. Why not? Is exciting. We watched him on football. Probably the only kid I've ever seen throw a pass to himself. He's that fast, right? It went up in the air and he came up underneath it and got it and took it for 20 yards. That's the kind of speed and athleticism he has. Those two players, I think, I would say I'm excited to see them both because I think they're going to be big time athletes and have the ability to change what happens in that game.
Josh, one guy you're excited to see.
One guy. I'm going to go with it's really hard to choose because you got Why Not leading the whole entire state in scoring per game. But now my choice was going to be Vander as well. But I really want to see Why Not, right? Through all my days of high school and watching high school basketball, I never have seen somebody leading the entire state in points per game, rebounds per game, blocks per game, assists per game, ever. I really have not seen that, right? And that's really unheard of. Now we get to see it. When he's top 5 in steals per game as well, like we're going to see that. We're going to see that this tournament. And along with that, one person that we can add as well is Tyson Charlie from Lakeside. He's just a freshman averaging about 16 points a game. This just is incredible players we're going to be seeing. We're lucky, Tim. We're real lucky.
Yeah, we love this division. Josh and I will call it all the time because it's fast action, great athletes, often overlooked athletes because of the size of their school. And every town, everybody in the town comes out to support them. Just makes a great atmosphere.
Yeah, honorable mention for player to watch as well, Terrell Ellenwood Jones for Lapwai. He was the do-it-all football guy for Lapwai this past fall. Great point guard as well. And what scary thought, Ryan Skaggs, our North Idaho broadcaster, relayed this story to me. So Lapwai entered the girls 1A D1 tournament as the overwhelming favorite. They had dominated everybody in the regular season. They get upset by Oakley in the semifinals, and the Lapwai boys are sitting at home, and they see that, and they go, okay, so you can't just show up to state and win. And they said, we got to go to the gym. Case Why Not went to his dad and said, hey, let's go to the gym. That night after the Lapwai girls lost, he said, let's go to the gym. There's more stuff
That's
we can
why
work
he's
on.
the athlete that he is. He didn't he didn't waste any time. Say, tomorrow, let's do that tonight.
So that's just a scary thought for everybody else at the 1A D1 level. That Lapwai is even more focused. So good luck to everybody at the 1A D1 tournament. Tim Belknap, Josh McGauley will be on the call for all the 1A D1 action this weekend on IdahoSports.com. All right, we'll take one last break. We'll come back to finish it up with our 1A D2 state tournament preview. Gary Jones standing by. We'll be back right after this. You're watching the 2023 IdahoSports.com boys basketball state tournament preview special. Welcome back one final time to the IdahoSports.com boys basketball state tournament preview special on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter account. Thanks to everybody tuning in live tonight to hear us break down the brackets and the teams and all that exciting stuff. As you're taking in the action tonight, give your favorite team, give your favorite player a shout out, and we will throw it up on the screen. And also while you're hanging out, if you could just hit that like button and share and retweet this. This will help everybody that couldn't be here live tonight find it a little easier tomorrow, Thursday, or even Friday. So thank you to everybody for doing that. Brandon Baney with Gary Jones, our final broadcaster of the night here. You will be calling the 1A D2 state tournament along with Glenn Jones. And Gary, you had all that good info and research. You were talking about during the last break, the 1A D1 and all the history. Nathan with a shout out to IdahoSports.com. We'll throw his shout out up on the screen. He says, as you guys talk about history for programs, shout out to Idaho Sports for keeping the past season records from the site's early days to the present. It's nice for people to go back and see, who teams played and how they did. Yeah, we've got a lot of the old state tournament brackets that you can go back and look at. It's kind of cool to take a look at that history, Gary.
Yeah, and this weekend I updated those 3 sheets I send you guys all the time. I did them years ago, most consecutive titles, most titles coaches, and most titles teams. Well, the other day I found the titles on the IHSA website, and I thought, I need to check these out. I spent like 5 or 6 hours marking them all with the dot and then whitening them out so I can go to the next team, and I corrected them all. I had some mistakes, unfortunately, but I've got them all. I'll send them to you guys now, and I'm pretty much guarantee they're all correct now.
All right. It's got that Gary Jones guarantee on there. Let's take a look at this 1A D2 bracket. If we put this up on the screen, Gary, and you tell me right away, what's the first thing you notice?
The first thing I notice, I always look for returning teams because returning teams have experience. They've been there before. They can handle the moment better than a team that maybe hasn't been there in a long time. And first of all, Rockland is coming back as defending champs. Council is coming back. They came in third, and they beat Cary in the third place game. Then Kendrick lost to Rockland in the first game, but they beat Timberline to get in the Constellation Championship game that they lost eventually to North Gem in a Constellation title. And the Cascade and Timberline are both back. They went 0-2, so I would expect them to try to pick up a game this year at least. And then the other thing, I'm interested in this seedings now for Max Prep, trying to figure out what is their formula. And I can't argue with any of their seedings like as much as I did with the girls, except for number 1 and 2. Rockland, in my opinion, deserves to be the number 1 team over Richfield. And for 2 reasons, or 3 reasons. They have a better record. Rockland's 21-2, Richfield's 21-4. They won their league title. Richfield came in second behind Camas, I believe. And then they played each other head to head. Only 1 game, but Rockland won by 16 points. Look, if head to head doesn't matter when all things are pretty much equal, what else is more important than head to head? So Rockland should be number 1. Richfield should be number 2. And I'm not saying Rockland's going to win. I'm just saying they deserve to be the number 1 ranked team. That's all.
See, and I was ready to push back on you. I was going to go, well, yes, Rockland piled up a lot of wins. Their league was weaker, top to bottom than Richfield. It's also larger, so of course there's going to be worse teams at the bottom. And then I was going to say, well, I think Richfield and Camas tied for the regular season title, and Camas got it on tiebreakers. But then you brought up the ultimate. Rockland won the head-to-head match. I can't refute that, Gary. I can't refute that. And either way, I think Richfield and Rockland 1-2 are going to be fantastic. The one team that isn't here is Camas County, the team that got to the championship last year and almost beat Rockland, right? It came down to the final 20 seconds or so, and Rockland won.
It was overtime, wasn't it?
I think it was it might have been, Gary. It was the first game.
One of those was overtime at Camas. And Camas was number 2 in the coaches poll.
And they were number 3 in the Max Preps rankings. And it's a shame that they didn't get here. In fact, Richfield had to beat Camas County twice at districts in a true double elimination scenario. They won on Thursday. It set up the winner take all game Saturday night. Richfield won that as well. They're finally getting healthy. They were missing their best player, Clay Kent, for a stretch there in January/February. He was out with an elbow injury, so he's back. Richfield is a team that's loaded for bear. But outside of Richfield and Rockland, Gary, who's the third team that you identify as a team that could contend?
Well, Council did well last year, and they came in third, beat a Cary team. When Cary's, like you mentioned in the previous one, they're always at state. They lost 1 kid. I want to say his name was Vining or McLean. It was, in our preview at the start of the year, I looked that up and it didn't have him down. But they've only lost 1 player. Now they're down seated at 5. However, there's a lot of good teams with good records. Water Springs is 21-4. So that Water Springs Council game, I would say whoever wins that has a good chance to upset Richfield and get to the state championship game.
Yeah, last year's team You know, you look at for Council, a lot of those key guys are back, both McLinn's. You mentioned Wyatt Vining, who's a fantastic player. And Water Springs is kind of the new team at State here. They've got a great player in Canfield. The question is do they have the depth that some of these other 1A D2 teams have?
One thing that preview guys on Idaho Sports, I love going back and looking at the previews you guys wrote a few months ago. And the Water Springs is the one team that's returning every single player back. So that has to be an advantage when you're back. Now, they weren't at State, but they're returning everybody back under the same coach who's, they got that system down pat by now.
Yeah, Evan Bindenagel has done a great job with the Water Springs program for sure. You mentioned Kendrick. I think they're kind of a sneaky team, Gary. Of course, we know what they've done in football, and it's a lot of those same. Yeah, it's a lot of those same guys on the basketball court as well. They've just got really good athletes, and Kendrick played a pretty rigorous schedule this year. I mean, they played St. Mary's twice, which is a 2A, so they punched up 2 levels there. They played a lot of those White Pine teams at the 1A D1 level, Potlatch and Prairie, and I don't know. This is a battle-tested team. I think Kendrick is a sneaky team as well.
Yeah, and they lost one good player from last year, Preston Boyer, but they only have one senior on this team, and they've got a big roster. So I don't think Kendrick's going anywhere. If you can bet Vegas who's going to be in State next year, I'd go ahead and put a couple hundred down on the Kendrick Tigers to be at State again next year.
Yeah, mark it down, right? That's for sure. And then I wanted to talk about Council, a Cascade a little bit as well. In the preseason coaches poll, Gary, that we send it out to every coach and ask, your conference, pick how your conference is going to go. Cascade was the preseason favorite. And then in the regular season, they kind of stumbled, right? They finished in 4th place. They scuffled a little bit. They lost some lopsided games to Council and Garden Valley. Well, this is a team that's kind of been juggling the lineup a lot this year. Their starting point guard was out for a long stretch of time. They had a lot of kids that were out with illness and sickness and that kind of stuff. And this is a team that's clicking at the right time. Cascade went into districts as the 4 seed. They beat Council, the 1 seed, Garden Valley, the 2 seed, to win the District 3 championship. I don't know that there's any team coming in with more momentum than Cascade.
And I'm trying to get their scores in district. They beat Tri-Valley 72-46. Then they beat Council by 6, and Council was 12-0 in league.
Yeah.
And then they crushed Garden Valley, who was a number 2 seed, 65-45. So they are peaking at the right time, and it got those the kids who were injured back. And who knows and they're back at State for the second year as well. So they got a lot of things working for them right now. So look, they're the dark horse that might just surprise some people like they surprised the Long Pin in district.
Yeah, after they upset Council at districts, I reached out to Coach Josh Hurley, and we wrote an article for our bracketology that we did about Cascade. And I kind of asked Coach Hurley, what's been the big key for your team? And he said they've kind of adopted 2 mantras, Gary. The first one is stay undefeated, which basically means, failure is only final when you quit. So stay undefeated against quitting. And then the other slogan they've kind of adopted is fail faster. And basically the thinking there is that teams that fail faster learn to succeed faster. And I think they've failed a little bit in the regular season, but now they're succeeding because of it. I like the 2 mantras that Cascade has adopted.
Yes, and the coaches don't just X and O it. Coaches are there for inspirational input in their athletes. And I was never an X and O coach, never. But I was pretty good at inspiring my athletes. I think most of those kids realized I was not Mr. X and O. But there's other ways to affect kids. And one of them is motivate them as best you can to play as best as they can.
Definitely. We've got Mary Lou Taylor in the comments. Go Tigers. That is the Kendrick Tigers. Let's take a look at that bracket one more time here and look at the matchups. Rockland, Timberline in the first round, Kendrick, Cascade, Water Springs and Council we talked about. And then, let's talk about Timberline and Clark Fork, the 7 and 8 seeds respectively. Those are the teams that aren't getting as much buzz coming in. Timberline, the 3 seed at District 2, knocked out Deary, the 2 seed, and then beat St. John Bosco, the 4 seed in the ultimate game Friday night to get to state. But this is a Timberline team that also has been to state the last couple of years.
Yeah, the ones that they went 0-2, but still, you pick up valuable experience when you go 0-2 because you've been to state. It's not that big of a deal to you anymore. Because I don't know when the last time Timberline was at state. I don't have enough numbers to research that. But let's say they haven't been to state in 10 years. Who knows? So these kids are at the first time for a long time at state, and you feel that pressure. You do. I mean, as a coach, when I went to state the first time, I felt the pressure. I won a state championship, as you know. I was more nervous in that state championship game than any of my players. I was dying. Then the third base coach said, "You're not enjoying this game, are you?" And I looked at him and said, "Oh my God, is it that obvious?" I go, "I'm not really enjoying this game." You know, I didn't handle the pressure well being in that title game because I was playing a team I'd already beat 3 times. So if I was like some of those guys that Scott Adams has won 7 titles, I don't think he was that nervous in titles 5, 6, and 7, you know, when he was winning with Firth all those years. And I consequently think that if Timberline has been to state last year, they're not as nervous this year. They're just not. Now, Clark Fork might be, but Clark Fork has something going for him. The coolest nickname in the state of Idaho, the Wampus Cats.
The Wampus Cats, yes. This is a Clark Fork team that went 12-8. They played Lakeside a couple of times, gave up, over 100 points, but Lakeside did that to a lot of teams. It's always hard to tell with them because the teams they play up there, it's a limited selection. They end up playing, Montana schools and Coeur de Christ, which is a new school that kind of just opened this year. It's a private, non-IHSAA school up there in Coeur d'Alene. So it's always hard to get a read on Clark Fork. They've got good athletes, but tall order as the 8 seed, but we'll see.
It's a tall order. They're taking on Ridgefield, who's 21-4, and their 4 losses were against quality teams. So they got their hands full. I'm gonna tell you one more reason I would have ranked Rockland number 1. They were number 1 in the coaches poll, and coaches know a lot about the teams because they watch them play. But almost more importantly, they were number 1 in the IdahoSports.com power rankings. And we now know Paul Kingsbury didn't write that algorithm. Neither did Scott Mosgrip, the one who first started Idaho Sports. It was Dustin Wixom, who was Paul Kingsbury's one of his best friends and played on that state championship team that I mentioned earlier in the webcast. And can I plug this in for Paul too? When he says he had nothing to do with it, he's absolutely wrong. He's just being modest. Did he play at state? No. Did he play in the regular season? Yes. But any coach will tell all your non-starters and people who didn't get in the game, you're very important in practice. He guarded Chris Bauman, our best player, and Chris set a record that still stands, 10 3-pointers. He played well because he had Paul in his face all practice, So Kingsbury, look me straight in the eye because I'm telling you right now, you were important. You were part of that team. I don't give a crap whether you didn't go in that state championship game or not. Yeah, everybody on that team is important.
Yeah, Gary, you're talking about the 93 champs from New Plymouth.
93. It's the only time New Plymouth has won a boys title. We have 1.
Yes. So Paul, a couple of notes from Paul. We were talking about Timberline, the Spartans. This is their 4th year in a row at state.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, they've been on a little run here recently. Paul
says
a
lot of experience then.
Yes. Paul also says he waved the heck out of that towel on the bench, Larry Bird style. That was his contribution to the team, waving that rally towel. So it's
I did the play-by-play of that game, and I started crying at the end. And let me tell you what you cannot do. You cannot talk and cry at the same time. So I started crying so hard I had to go to commercial. And I blubbered my way into a commercial, and then for the 3-minute commercial, I was on radio, not webcasting. And I tried to dry my eyes so I could talk when I came back. Tears of joy are like a lot worse than tears of pain because you can understand tears of pain. But I've cried a few tears of joy. I did it when I won state. I did it when Paul won state. And my wife's from Council, and I used to live in Council. I know Council. If you listen to the last webcast when Council wins, I'm starting to cry. And I'm always thinking to myself, why am I crying? But tears of joy, they do taste sweet, but they're a little embarrassing.
Well, Paul says he cried as well in 93 because you were doing play-by-play of that game. So you guys, Bro Fest continues.
Actually, he's wrong. Ron Kovic was in play-by-play. I was color, but Ron left because he wanted to do AD stuff when they won. So he just said, "It's yours, Jones." So that was one of my first play-by-plays, but the game was over. I was just doing, play-by-play as what were the stats and everything.
Right. Post-game show host for sure. You talked about Council. Last comment, and then we'll get to our players to watch. Ryan Hatfield says, go Council. The loss to Cascade may have helped them, honestly. I think they're more focused now. Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. And I think I do like Council a little bit over Water Springs in that 5-4 matchup because they're more experienced, like you said.
Ryan's totally right. A loss can help teams, because it makes them refocus. Sometimes you get too big of a head. We're beating everybody. And so I totally agree with Ryan, who's a friend of mine. He's right. That could help Council and spring them into the title game.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's take a look at our 1A D2 players to watch, and then we'll get out of here. We picked one guy from each team. Tyler Thurston from Cascade, and we talked about the Ramblers. They are rambling full speed ahead. Chase San Roman from Clark Fork, great athlete, multi-sport athlete. Wyatt Vining of Council. He's going to play college football at the next level, but he's a great basketball player as well. Jagger Hewitt of Kendrick, the lone senior on this year's team, scored over 1,000 points in his career. Earlier this season, he crossed that 1,000-point barrier. Clay Kent of Richfield. He's the guy I was talking about that was out for a stretch of time with that injury. He's back now. Teague Matthews of Rockland. Dude can elevate. Gary, you're going to see, I think, a couple of dunks from Teague Matthews at State. He can high jump like 6'6" at least. Parker Brown from Timberline and Daniel Canfield of Water Springs can really fill it up. Which guy are you most excited to see play?
Well, I'm not going to be a homer and pick Council, okay? I'm going to go with the Rockland kid.
Teague Matthews.
Teague Matthews. Can I add his brother, too? Because I got some stats on him. Together, combined, they've scored 30.8 points. This is an average, 18.7 rebounds. And Teague was the A1 D2 player of the year last year. And so he's coming back. And so I'm looking forward to him. But I'm going to cheat and pick one player that you didn't even put on the screen because I heard about him. He's from Timberline, and he's a Hawaiian. When I was talking to the secretary, my brother heard some stuff on him. Like this guy transferred in, and he's just a fantastic athlete. So they made him come out for basketball. And if you look at his name on the program, you wouldn't ever even try to pronounce it. So I have to look at my phonetic spelling for this kid. And I guess he's a big boy, big Hawaiian. Monet Tukolovatu. I got to say that thing about 10 times before I go to, because I got to say that on a fast break sometimes, probably. I just want to see this kid, a big old Hawaiian that's such a great athlete at such a small school. If you're a good athlete at a small school, they're going to make you play sports that you maybe haven't even played before, because as Rick Bauman, a great TVC coach, told me, Gary, you won't out-coach a lot of people. You put more athletes on the floor than them, and you'll probably win most games. And I've come to appreciate that. He's probably right with that. So Monet Tukolovatu.
You got time to practice it. And I will say, you talked about Teague Matthews. His brother, Wes Matthews, was on the team last year, and he graduated. But, man, it was fun watching those two play together as brothers. They would throw alley-oops up to each other. I saw that against Clark County, the Pride of Du Bois.
Okay, this is for Paul. I like to show this every time. It's everybody's playing for. The Jostens ring says state champs there for my 94 baseball team.
Also at,
and I'll be wearing it when I broadcast. I wear it every year broadcasting.
Hey, you're the only guy that can. So
No. If Paul had ordered the ring, he could too.
That's true. And for really, Scott Burton's won about 20 debate championships.
There we go. So Burton needs to get a ring, and Paul could go ahead and order one. Jostens, I believe, is still in business. He could tell him what color he wants, his ring size. He could still get one.
Gary, I'm going to task you with it's too late this year, but next year, can you get Jostens as a corporate sponsor for our state tournament broadcasts?
Wouldn't that be nice?
I'm going to put you in charge of that, Gary.
You know what? When I was at New Plymouth for years, Jostens would sell rings in my biology class. And so I got to know all the Jostens guy. And the one guy I really got close to was Garth. And he's gone now. He's in Twin Falls. He's not working for Jostens. But you know what? I'll give him a call and I'll do a little ad for you.
Okay. That sounds great, Gary. Can't wait. And we can't wait for all of the state basketball action headed your way starting Thursday, high noon, every single game on IdahoSports.com, totally live. Totally free. Doesn't cost you anything to tune in and listen. And if you're stuck at work and you can't listen, right? Boss is really on you. I get it. We are going to have the Flash, our interactive, in real time updating scoreboard. So you can check all of the games going on, and we will have an updating scoreboard as those games go along as well. It's all right there on the homepage.
Hey, one more shout out for me.
Yeah.
One more shout out, if I can interrupt you. Caldwell High treats us so well, and they have a fantastic hospitality room. So my wife doesn't have to make me lunch. So I'm going to shout out to Caldwell High. They treat us like kings there. I'm really looking forward to going back to Caldwell.
All of our venues, Caldwell, Valley View, Meridian, Rocky Mountain, Capitol, and of course the Idaho Center, all going to be great venues for these state tournaments. Brackets, all the info you need on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. Big thanks to everybody who tuned in for our live state tournament preview show, and we'll see you with the action starting Thursday. For Gary Jones, Paul Kingsbury, all of the broadcasters at IdahoSports.com, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.